There's still 2 weeks to go until the January transfer window, but Middlesbrough have already been dealt a pretty hefty blow with regards to one of their star players. The player that we're talking about, of course, is Matt Targett. Now, Matt Targett is a player who arrived at the club on loan from Newcastle United in the summer. He signed a season-long loan deal at the Riverside Stadium, and he's done wonderfully well. But his situation has changed somewhat, with Newcastle suffering something of an injury crisis. Now, Newcastle have got a number of players out injured at the moment. On Wednesday night, they lost Tino Livramento, the England fullback, to a knee injury during their Carabao Cup quarter-final clash with Fulham. And that's added to a pretty hefty injury list that they've got. They've got Lewis Hall out at the moment, the left-back. They've also got Sven Botman, Dan Burn, Kieran Trippier and Emil Kraft all out of action at the moment. So their defence is looking pretty lightweight at the moment. Now, according to Teesside Live, Newcastle do have the option of recalling Matt Targett in the January transfer window. And speaking after the match against Fulham, Eddie Howe was suggesting that they could take up the option to bring Targett back as defensive cover. So speaking after the game with regards to the situation with Matt Targett, Eddie Howe said, "We will make the decision closer to the date that we have to. Certainly at the moment, I don't have many more rabbits to pull out of the hat, so let's see. At the moment, we are in dangerous territory." Of course, Newcastle are in a position where they are wanting to retain their Carabao Cup crown, having won it last season. And they're also performing under expectations in the Premier League as well, so they really need that strength and depth to help them in the second half of the campaign. Now, with regards to Matt Targett, his personal situation is quite an interesting one. He's 30 years of age, and he has struggled over the last couple of seasons with injury, and his Newcastle career looked to be all but over. His contract at St James's Park is up in the summer. It's widely expected that he's going to be allowed to leave the club on a free transfer. I know that Middlesbrough would be interested in signing him on a permanent basis, but this situation could see him come back to St James's Park and challenge for a place in a Premier League defence. Now, I don't expect that this will change anything in terms of his long-term future at the club. I can't see him being a regular starter for Newcastle, but given that he is Newcastle's player and they do have the option to recall him, they are clearly looking to take up that option to boost their defensive ranks. And for Matt Targett, it could potentially be an opportunity to prove that he is someone who's capable of playing at Premier League level. Now, of course, he has suffered his injuries more recently, but since he's been at Middlesbrough, he's done incredibly well. His performances this season have been wonderful. He's been one of the first names on the team sheet as far as Middlesbrough are concerned. He's made 18 appearances for Middlesbrough so far this season. He's scored 2 goals, provided 1 assist, and he's been a really, really valuable player in the other back line of both Rob Edwards and Kim Hellberg. Of course, he's a left back by trade. That's his best position, but he has also slotted in central defence as well, which has been a really, really handy thing, given the injuries that Middlesbrough have suffered at the heart of defence so far this season. So what does this mean for Middlesbrough in terms of what we're going to be looking to do from this point on? Well, in terms of Matt Targett, we are pretty powerless in that regard. Newcastle hold the cards with regards to his future. If they decide to recall him, bring him back to St James's Park, there's not really a lot that Middlesbrough can do about that. He is Newcastle's player after all. He's contracted to them at least for another 6 months. If they do decide to recall him, then Middlesbrough are in a bit of a powerless situation with regards to that, and it would be a massive blow to lose someone who's been such an important player and such a leader within the dressing room this season. But in terms of other personnel within the squad, we're probably in a fairly decent position to cover that situation. Now, of course, Matt Targett has played in central defence a number of times this season. We do have players who seem to be the more trusted figures under Kim Hellberg and Dale Fry, Luke Ayling, Alfie Jones. They're the main 3, as well as Matt Targett in central defence. We do also have George Edmondson, but of course, on January the 1st, we've got Adelson Malander, who's going to be linking up with the Middlesbrough squad. He'll then be able to be registered to play for Middlesbrough, and he'll be able to make his debut. I think there was a report from Teesside Live the other day suggesting that Malander could potentially make his debut on January the 4th at home against Southampton. I think there's a clash on New Year's Day against Derby, which will come too soon, but Malander will be able to feature from the 4th. Now, with him coming into the club, there was always going to be a question mark over what does it mean for Middlesbrough's other defenders. We've got a 25-man squad. We're already going to be over capacity as it stands. Would we need to move another defender on? So if Matt Targett was to leave Middlesbrough, head back to Newcastle, it could mean that that situation is pretty much resolved, in that of course, he would move on. Adelson Malander would come in, and there would be another central defensive option there without having to move someone else on out of the squad. Now, at left back, this is where it potentially comes a little bit more tricky. A situation that Middlesbrough probably aren't too happy about with regards to this. So Matt Targett is naturally a left back, probably the best left back at the club and certainly the most reliable. The last few weeks we've seen Alex Bangura come back into contention. He, of course, had been out injured for a long, long time. He hadn't started a match for 22 months. But in the last few weeks under Kim Hellberg, he started 3 of the 4 games under Hellberg and looked mightily impressive as well. So he's looked very, very good. You think that if he is going to stay fit and if he is going to be able to stay fit, he's going to have a massive role to play, could potentially be that first choice left back under Kim Hellberg. But of course, given his fitness record, we will need to manage him somewhat. And of course, there is still that element of risk that he could suffer an injury setback. But he's certainly someone who can play in that left-back role. Lucas Engel is someone who's been spoken about as well. More recently, he's spent the last year on loan in the MLS with FC Cincinnati. He's done very, very well over there. Of course, he's a left-back. That's where Middlesbrough have seen him since he arrived at the club. He spent 18 months playing as a left-back before leaving for the MLS last January, in January 2024. But since he's been in the MLS, he has played in central defence as well. He's played as a left-sided centre-back. So potentially he could be someone who's given an opportunity to show what he could do in Middlesbrough's defence. Kim Hellberg's already given opportunities to several fringe players who had seemingly had their Middlesbrough careers over before that. People like Alex Gilbert and Mika Hamilton even. Players who looked like they were going to be moving on. He gave them an opportunity and they've really thrived under him. So he's already been suggested that he's going to give Engel an opportunity to show what he can do. And this could be the perfect opportunity to come in, show himself in central defence, but also show himself at left back. Can he be someone who can play a big part under Kim Hellberg in that left back spot? Of course, it's a new system. Last time Engel was at the club, it was under Michael Carrick. We've since had 2 head coaches since then. Carrick's left the club. Rob Edwards has come in. He's came and left, of course, in quite a short period of time. So now under Kim Hellberg, it's a completely different system, a completely different manager, and potentially this could be something that would be really good for Lucas Engel if he is going to kick on and reignite his Middlesbrough career. It feels like a bit of an ask, but this situation with Matt Targett does feel like something which could be a big opportunity for him. Elsewhere, Middlesbrough do also have George McCormack, the young left back. He's not really knocking on the door of the first team right now, but he is someone who is in there. But of course, Middlesbrough also have Sammy Silvera, who started the season at left back in that sort of left wing back position. Did very, very well, considering he's not a left back by trade. He did very well in that position, so he could be someone else who offers vital cover in that left back position if Matt Targett does move on. But I mentioned it in my most recent video about 10 potential deals that Middlesbrough could do in the January transfer window, and that is with regards to bringing in a new left back to replace him, and that person could be Max Arfston. Now, he currently plays for Columbus Crew. He's done very, very well over in the MLS. He's a known target of Middlesbrough. We wanted to sign him over the summer. The MLS season is now finished, so this could be the ideal time for Middlesbrough to move. And with Matt Targett now potentially moving on and moving back to Newcastle, it could pave the way for Middlesbrough to make that move to sign Max Arfston on a permanent basis. Now, Matt Targett was always going to be, he was always brought in as a sort of, almost a bit of a sticking plaster really for this position. Left back has always been, I say always, it's been a pretty troubled position for Middlesbrough over the last few seasons. The last time that we had a really nailed on left back was probably Ryan Giles in that first season under Michael Carrick when he did so well. Since then, we've kind of tried Engel, we've tried Alex Bangura, we tried Ryan Giles again, we've tried numerous options. No one's really taken the role permanently, and so Max Arfston could be the person to come in and take that role on a permanent basis. Of course, Middlesbrough would need to strike that deal. It would need to be done. It would cost a significant amount of money in terms of millions of pounds. But if Matt Targett does move on, it could pave the way for Middlesbrough to accelerate that interest, bring him into the club and see him as the long-term option in that left-back role. So Middlesbrough do have plenty of options here at left-back. I think if Matt Targett does leave the club, it will be a real blow because he's done so well this season. I've really liked watching Matt Targett in the Middlesbrough team, not just a left back, someone who can play at central defence. He's also a leader. He's got real experience at 30 years of age, but he's not certainly not over the hill, and he's shown that he's very much capable of playing at the top end of the Championship, if not the Premier League. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. It'll be interesting to see if Newcastle do decide to recall him. If they do decide to recall him, will he play? Will he get any game time? And it'll obviously be interesting to see what happens with his contract at the end of the season. But for Middlesbrough, there are options there. We do have a bit of cover at left back. We do have Alison Malanda, who'll be coming in central defence. And of course, we've got Max Arfston, who could potentially be pursued as an option to come into the club as that long-standing member at left back if we do decide to pursue it. So I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the Matt Targett situation? Would you be disappointed to see him leave the club and head back to Newcastle for the second half of the season? Drop into the comments below. Let me know what you think of the situation. And if you haven't enjoyed this video, please do hit like and please do hit subscribe as well, because there's going to be plenty more coming up very, very soon. I'll catch you later.